Welcome, dear viewers, to a journey beyond the ordinary, a tale woven with courage, wisdom, and love. Tonight, I invite you to step into a world where magic thrives and truth is a path, not a destination. This is the story of Aurelia, a seeker on a quest for self-discovery, who must face trials that will test her heart and soul. So, sit back, relax, and let the mystical forest of Elenara guide you through an enchanting adventure. This is the Trials of Elenara, and it all begins now. Chapter 1. The Whispering Woods. In the heart of the ancient realm of Elenara, where the skies were tinged with the golden hues of eternal twilight, lay the Whispering Woods. These woods were unlike any other in the land, for they were alive with the voices of the past. The trees, ancient and towering, whispered secrets to those who dared to listen. Their leaves shimmered with an ethereal light, casting a soft glow on the forest floor that was carpeted with delicate, luminescent flowers. Aurelia, a wanderer with a heart full of longing and a past she wished to forget, found herself drawn to the woods on a night when the stars seemed to sing. She was a traveler, a seeker of truths hidden in the shadows of forgotten places, and the Whispering Woods had called to her in her dreams. Clad in a cloak of deep emerald, embroidered with symbols of protection, Aurelia entered the woods. Each step she took was met with the soft rustle of leaves and the distant echo of voices long gone. The air was cool, carrying the scent of moss and wildflowers, and there was a stillness that suggested the forest was waiting for something or someone. As she ventured deeper, the whispers grew louder, and she began to understand their words. They spoke of an ancient power hidden within the heart of the woods, a power that could change the fate of any who found it. But with power came danger, and the woods were not without their guardians. Aurelia paused at the edge of a shimmering pool, its waters as clear as crystal. The surface reflected the starlit sky above, but as she looked closer, she saw something else. A figure standing on the other side of the water, watching her with eyes that glowed like molten gold. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely more than a whisper, as if afraid to disturb the sacred silence of the woods. The figure stepped forward, emerging from the shadows. He was tall, with hair as dark as the night sky, and a presence that seemed to blend with the very essence of the forest. His clothes were simple yet elegant, and around his neck hung a pendant shaped like a crescent moon. "I am Elian," he said, his voice deep and resonant, like the rumble of distant thunder. "Keeper of the woods, guardian of its secrets." Aurelia felt a shiver run down her spine. "Why have you been watching me?" Elian's eyes softened, and he took another step closer, the water rippling beneath his feet, as if it too recognized his power. "The woods called to you, Aurelia. You are not here by chance. There is something you seek, something only these woods can provide." Aurelia nodded slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. "I've been searching for answers, about who I am, about the dreams that haunt me. The answers you seek lie within the heart of the woods," Elian said, his gaze never leaving hers. "But they come with a price. Are you willing to pay it?" Aurelia hesitated, the weight of his words sinking in. The Whispering Woods were known for their trials, and not all who entered came out the same. But she had come too far to turn back now. "I am," she said, her voice firm despite the uncertainty that gnawed at her. Elion nodded, a hint of a smile touching his lips. "Then follow me, Aurelia. But remember, the woods do not give their secrets easily. You must be prepared to face whatever lies ahead." With that, he turned and began to walk deeper into the forest, the shadows closing in around him. Aurelia took a deep breath, steeling herself for the journey ahead, and followed. As they walked, the whispers grew louder, and the air grew thick with magic. The trees seemed to shift and change, their bark glowing with ancient runes that pulsed with a life of their own. The path was winding, and Aurelia soon lost all sense of direction. But Elion moved with purpose, as if guided by an unseen force. After what felt like hours, they reached a clearing. In the center stood a massive tree, its roots twisting and turning like serpents, its branches stretching towards the heavens. At its base was a door, carved into the trunk and adorned with intricate symbols that seemed to shimmer in the starlight. "This is the heart of the woods," Elion said, his voice reverent. "Inside lies the answer to your questions. But beware, for the truth is not always easy to bear." Aurelia swallowed hard, her hand trembling as she reached for the door. She paused, glancing back at Elion, who gave her an encouraging nod. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. The world around her shifted, and she found herself standing in a vast, open space, the sky above swirling with colors she had never seen before. The air was thick with magic, and she could feel it pulsing through her veins, awakening something deep within her. In the center of the space was a pedestal, and on it rested a crystal, glowing with a soft inner light. Aurelia approached it, her heart racing. She could feel the answers she sought just within reach, but as she reached out to touch the crystal, a voice echoed through the space. "Are you ready to face the truth, Aurelia, to see what has been hidden from you?" Aurelia hesitated, the weight of the question pressing down on her. But she knew she had come too far to turn back now. With a deep breath, she reached out and touched the crystal. In an instant, the world around her exploded with light, and Aurelia was engulfed in a vision. She saw herself, but not as she was now. She was a child, running through a field of wildflowers, laughing with joy. But the scene quickly changed, and she saw herself as she was now, standing alone in a world that seemed to be falling apart. She saw the pain and sorrow that had brought her to the Whispering Woods, the choices she had made, and the consequences that had followed. But there was more. She saw a figure shrouded in darkness, watching her from the shadows. It was a presence she had felt before in her dreams, but had never been able to fully grasp. Now, as the vision continued, she realized with a start who it was herself. Or rather, a part of herself that she had long tried to forget, a part that had been buried deep within her soul. The vision ended as abruptly as it had begun, and Aurelia was left standing in the clearing, the crystal still glowing softly on the pedestal. She was shaking, her mind reeling from what she had seen. Elion appeared at her side, his expression unreadable. "You have seen the truth, Aurelia. Now you must decide what to do with it." Aurelia looked down at the crystal, her heart heavy. The answers she had sought were not what she had expected, and she was left with more questions than before. But she knew one thing for certain: she could not go back to the way things were. "I don't know if I'm ready," she admitted, her voice barely more than a whisper. Elion placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch gentle. "No one ever is. But you have the strength to face whatever comes next. The woods have chosen you, Aurelia. You are not alone." Aurelia nodded, her resolve hardening. She had come to the Whispering Woods seeking answers, and while they had not been what she expected, she knew she could not turn back now. The journey ahead would be difficult, but she was determined to see it through. With a deep breath, she turned to Elion, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Chapter 2. The Guardians of the Wood. The door behind Aurelia closed with a soft thud, leaving her alone with the crystal's light still shimmering faintly. She turned to face Elion, but he had disappeared, as if the woods had swallowed him whole. A gentle wind rustled the leaves above, carrying with it the whispers of the woods. They were no longer the cryptic murmurings she had heard before. Now they spoke with a clearer voice, guiding her, urging her to continue. Aurelia knew her journey was far from over. She felt a new resolve harden within her, born from the vision she had seen and the truth she had been forced to confront. But she also felt a new uncertainty, a fear of what lay ahead, of what she might uncover. She began to walk, following the path that seemed to unfurl before her. The trees around her grew taller, their bark rough and ancient, their leaves whispering secrets of old. The air grew cooler, and the light dimmed, as if the woods were closing in around her. As she walked, Aurelia couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The shadows seemed to move with a life of their own, and she could sense eyes following her every step. But whenever she turned, there was nothing, only the endless expanse of trees and the soft rustle of leaves. The path led her to a clearing, and Aurelia stopped in her tracks, her heart pounding. In the center of the clearing stood a circle of stones, ancient and weathered, their surfaces covered in intricate carvings. At the center of the circle was a pedestal, similar to the one she had seen before, but this one was empty. Aurelia approached the circle cautiously, her eyes scanning the surrounding woods for any sign of movement. She could feel the magic pulsing through the air, stronger here than anywhere else in the woods. It was as if the very ground beneath her feet was alive, humming with power. As she reached the edge of the circle, the ground began to tremble, and the stones began to glow with a soft, ethereal light. Aurelia gasped, stepping back as the light grew brighter, forming a barrier around the circle. From the light emerged a figure, tall and imposing, clad in armor that gleamed with an otherworldly radiance. The figure's face was hidden behind a helmet, but Aurelia could feel its gaze on her, piercing and unyielding. "Who dares enter the sacred circle?" The figure's voice boomed, echoing through the clearing. It was a voice of authority, commanding and powerful. Aurelia swallowed hard, her mind racing. She knew she had to tread carefully. This was no ordinary guardian. She could feel the weight of its presence, the power that radiated from it. "I am Aurelia," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I seek the truth of who I am, of what my purpose is." The guardian was silent for a moment, as if considering her words. Then it spoke again, its voice softer, more measured. "The truth you seek lies within, but it is not easily found. To uncover it, you must pass the trials of the woods. Only then will you be worthy of the knowledge you seek." Aurelia felt a chill run down her spine. "What are these trials?" The guardian raised a hand, and the light around the circle intensified, forming into 3 distinct shapes. Each shape was a door, each one glowing with a different color, one red, one blue, and one green. 3 trials lie before you," the guardian said, its voice solemn. "Each one will test a different aspect of your being, your courage, your wisdom, and your heart. Choose wisely, for the path you take will determine your fate." Aurelia stared at the doors, her mind racing. She could feel the weight of the decision before her, the enormity of the task that lay ahead. But she knew she could not turn back now. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward, her eyes locked on the red door. She could feel the heat radiating from it, the fire that burned within. This was the trial of courage, she knew, the trial that would test her resolve, her strength of will. With a final glance at the guardian, Aurelia reached out and grasped the handle of the red door. It was warm to the touch, almost burning, but she did not flinch. She turned the handle and the door swung open, revealing a blinding light that engulfed her. And then she was falling into a world of fire and flame, a world where the ground beneath her feet cracked and crumbled, where the air was thick with smoke and the sky burned with an angry red glow. Aurelia landed hard on the ground, the impact knocking the breath from her lungs. She gasped, struggling to her feet as the ground shook beneath her. All around her the world was ablaze, the flames licking at her skin, the heat searing her flesh. But she did not falter. She knew this was the trial of courage, and she would not let fear consume her. With a determined resolve, Aurelia began to walk, her eyes scanning the burning landscape for any sign of a path. The ground was treacherous, the heat unbearable, but she pushed forward, driven by the knowledge that this was the only way to uncover the truth she sought. As she walked, the flames grew higher, the heat more intense, until it felt as though the very air was on fire. But still, she did not falter. She knew that to survive this trial, she would need to confront her fears head-on, to face the fire and emerge unscathed. Finally, after what felt like hours, she reached the center of the burning landscape. There, amidst the flames, stood a figure tall and imposing, its body wreathed in fire, its eyes burning with an inner light. The figure turned to face her, its gaze piercing. "You have come far, Aurelia," it said, its voice like the crackling of flames. "But the true test lies ahead. Are you prepared to face the fire within? Aurelia nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the fire burning within her, the fear that threatened to consume her. But she would not let it. She had come too far to turn back now. With a deep breath, she stepped forward, the flames parting before her as she approached the figure. The heat was intense, but she did not flinch. She knew that to pass this trial, she would need to embrace the fire, to let it consume her, and emerge stronger on the other side. The figure watched her with a silent intensity, its eyes glowing with an inner fire. "The fire within you is strong," it said, its voice a low rumble. "But it can be controlled. You must learn to harness it, to use it to your advantage. Only then will you be able to face the trials ahead." Aurelia nodded, her resolve hardening. She knew the figure was right. She could feel the fire within her, the burning desire to uncover the truth, to find her purpose. But she also knew that if she let that fire consume her, it would destroy her. With a deep breath, she closed her eyes and focused on the fire within. She could feel it burning, hot and fierce, threatening to consume her. But she would not let it. She would control it, harness it, use it to her advantage. And as she did, the flames around her began to die down, the heat dissipating, the fire within her cooling to a manageable level. She could feel the power within her, the strength that came from controlling the fire, from harnessing it to her will. When she opened her eyes, the burning landscape was gone. She was back in the clearing, standing before the Guardian. The red door had disappeared, replaced by a small glowing ember that hovered in the air before her. "You have passed the trial of courage," the Guardian said, its voice filled with a quiet reverence. "You have harnessed the fire within, and with it, the strength to face the trials ahead." Aurelia reached out and took the ember, feeling its warmth in her hand. She could feel the power within it, the fire that burned with an intensity she had never felt before. She knew that this was the key to unlocking the next trial, to uncovering the truth she sought. With a nod to the Guardian, she turned to face the next door, the blue door, the trial of wisdom. Chapter 3. The Wisdom of Waters. Aurelia stood before the blue door, the ember of courage warm in her hand. The trial of courage had left her feeling both drained and empowered, but she knew she could not pause for long. The path ahead demanded her focus, and the trial of wisdom would require a different kind of strength. The blue door shimmered like the surface of a calm sea, its color shifting and changing as if it were made of water itself. She hesitated for only a moment before she reached out and grasped the handle. It was cool to the touch, a welcome relief from the heat of the previous trial. With a deep breath, Aurelia turned the handle and stepped through the door. As she did, the world around her dissolved into water, and she found herself submerged in a vast, silent ocean. There was no ground beneath her, no sky above, only endless water stretching out in all directions. Panic seized her for a moment as she struggled to breathe, but then she realized she was not drowning. The water around her was as breathable as air, cool and soothing against her skin. She could see clearly in the liquid depths, her vision sharper than it had ever been on land. Before her, a path of light appeared, leading into the unknown. It pulsed with a gentle glow, inviting her to follow. Aurelia hesitated, feeling the weight of the trial pressing down on her. She knew that this path would not be easy. Wisdom, she reminded herself, was born of experience, and experience often came with pain. She swam forward, her movements smooth and effortless, as if the water carried her along. The light led her deeper into the ocean, where the colors around her shifted from deep blue to a rich, verdant green. Strange, bioluminescent creatures darted around her, their bodies glowing with soft, ethereal light. Some were as small as minnows, while others were larger than she was, their forms undulating with a grace that made them seem otherworldly. The path led her to a clearing in the water, a wide, open space where the light gathered in the center, swirling into the shape of a massive, translucent orb. Aurelia approached it cautiously, sensing the wisdom it contained, but also the challenge it presented. As she drew near, the orb began to pulse, and a voice echoed in her mind, a voice calm, serene, and ancient beyond measure. To gain wisdom, one must first confront the truth of the past. Knowledge is a double-edged sword, and the answers you seek may not be the ones you wish to hear. Aurelia's heart clenched at the words. She had already confronted her past in the trial of courage, but she knew that wisdom would require a deeper understanding, a willingness to see the full picture, no matter how painful it might be. The orb's surface shimmered and images began to form within it, images of her life, of choices she had made and paths she had taken. She saw herself as a child, curious and eager to learn, always asking questions, always seeking answers. She saw herself growing older, the innocence of youth giving way to the harsh realities of the world. She saw the moments of regret, the times when she had acted out of fear rather than wisdom, when she had let anger cloud her judgment. But there were also moments of clarity, of insight. She saw herself learning from her mistakes, growing wiser with each experience, understanding that true wisdom came not just from knowledge, but from empathy, from understanding the perspectives of others. The orb's light grew brighter, and Aurelia felt herself drawn into the images as if she were reliving them. She saw the people she had hurt, the opportunities she had missed, but also the times she had shown kindness, the moments when she had chosen the harder path because it was the right thing to do. As the images played out before her, Aurelia felt a deep sadness, but also a sense of acceptance. She could see now that wisdom was not about being perfect or always making the right choice. It was about learning, growing, and understanding that life was a journey of constant discovery. The orb's voice echoed in her mind once more. To pass this trial, you must accept the wisdom of your past, both the good and the bad. Only then will you be able to move forward with clarity and purpose. Aurelia nodded, her heart heavy but also lightened by the understanding she had gained. She reached out and touched the orb, feeling its warmth and light flow into her, filling her with a deep sense of peace. The images faded, and the orb dissolved into a soft, glowing mist that surrounded her. She could feel the wisdom it had imparted, not just in her mind, but in her soul. The path ahead was still uncertain, but she knew she was now better equipped to face it. When the mist cleared, Aurelia found herself back in the clearing with the Guardian. The blue door was gone, replaced by a small glowing crystal of sapphire hue. She held it in her hand, feeling the wisdom it contained, the clarity it brought. "You have passed the trial of wisdom," the Guardian said, its voice filled with a quiet respect. "You have seen the truth of your past, and you have accepted it. With this wisdom, you will be able to face the trials ahead." Aurelia nodded, her resolve stronger than before. She placed the sapphire crystal next to the ember of courage, feeling their combined power thrumming in her hand. There was only one trial left, the trial of the heart. She turned to face the final door, the green one, knowing that this trial would be the most challenging of all. Chapter 4. The Heart's Reckoning. Aurelia stood before the green door, the ember of courage and the crystal of wisdom in her hands. She had faced the fire within her, confronted the truth of her past, and now only one trial remained, the trial of the heart. The green door was different from the others. It was made of living wood, its surface smooth and warm to the touch, as if it were a part of the forest itself. Vines curled around its edges, and delicate flowers bloomed along its frame, their fragrance sweet and comforting. She hesitated, knowing that this trial would reach into the deepest parts of her soul. The heart was the seat of all emotions: love, fear, pain, joy, and to pass this trial, she would need to face them all. With a deep breath, Aurelia pushed open the door and stepped through. The world around her shifted once more, and she found herself standing in a lush green meadow, bathed in the soft light of the setting sun. The air was warm and filled with the scent of blooming flowers, the sound of birdsong echoing in the distance. For a moment, Aurelia was taken aback by the beauty of the scene. It was so peaceful, so serene, that it felt almost like a dream. But she knew that this was no ordinary meadow. This was the heart of the trial, the place where she would be tested in ways she could not yet imagine. As she walked through the meadow, Aurelia felt a strange sense of déjà vu, as if she had been here before. The landscape seemed familiar, the rolling hills and the distant forest calling to her with a pull she couldn't quite explain. In the distance, she saw a figure standing beneath a tall, ancient oak tree. The figure was cloaked in shadows, their features obscured, but Aurelia could feel the intensity of their gaze. She knew instinctively that this figure was important, that they held the key to the trial of the heart. She approached the figure slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. As she drew closer, the shadows lifted, revealing a man with dark hair and piercing green eyes. He was tall and strong, his presence commanding yet gentle. Aurelia felt a jolt of recognition. This was someone she knew, someone who had once been important to her. "Do you remember me, Aurelia?" the man asked, his voice soft and filled with emotion. Aurelia's breath caught in her throat as memories flooded her mind. memories of a time long past, of a love she had once cherished but had lost along the way. She remembered his name now, remembered the way he had made her feel alive, how he had been her anchor in a world that had often felt chaotic and uncertain. "Ronan," she whispered, her voice trembling. "How are you here, I thought you were gone." Ronan smiled, a sad, wistful smile that tugged at Aurelia's heart. "I am gone, Aurelia, but I live on in your heart, in the memories we shared." Tears welled up in her eyes as she took a step closer, the pain of loss washing over her. "I never wanted to lose you," she said, her voice breaking. "I never wanted to let you go." "I know," Ronan said, his voice filled with understanding, "but sometimes the heart has to let go, even when it doesn't want to. That is the nature of love, Aurelia. It is both beautiful and painful, both a gift and a burden." Aurelia closed her eyes, letting the tears fall freely. She had never truly let go of Ronan, had never allowed herself to fully grieve his loss. She had buried the pain deep within her heart, locking it away where it couldn't hurt her. But now, in this meadow, standing before the man she had once loved, she could no longer hide from it. "You have carried this pain for so long," Ronan said, his voice gentle. "But you don't have to carry it alone. Let it go, Aurelia. Let your heart heal." Aurelia felt the weight of his words, the truth in them. She knew that this was the trial of the heart, to let go of the past, to release the pain that had held her back for so long. It was not an easy thing to do, but she knew it was necessary. With a deep, shuddering breath, Aurelia stepped forward and embraced Ronan, holding him close as the tears flowed freely. She could feel the warmth of his presence, the love that had once bound them together, and as she held him, she felt the pain in her heart begin to ease, the wounds of the past slowly healing. Ronan held her gently, his touch comforting and reassuring. "Love is never truly lost, Aurelia. It lives on in the memories, in the hearts of those who carry it. You will always have a place for me in your heart, just as I will always have a place for you in mine." Aurelia nodded, her heart aching but also at peace. She knew that Ronan was right, that love was not something that could be lost or forgotten. It was a part of her, a part of who she was. And while the pain of losing him would never fully go away, she could carry that love with her, allowing it to strengthen her rather than weigh her down. As she released Ronan, the meadow around her began to fade, the light growing dimmer, but she did not feel afraid. She knew that this was the end of the trial, that she had faced the deepest parts of her heart and had come through the other side. When the meadow disappeared entirely, Aurelia found herself back in the clearing with the Guardian. The green door was gone, replaced by a small glowing flower, a delicate blossom that pulsed with a soft green light. "You have passed the trial of the heart," the Guardian said, its voice filled with warmth. "You have faced your deepest pain, and you have emerged with your heart whole. With this, your trials are complete." Aurelia took the flower in her hand, feeling its warmth, its life. She could feel the love it represented, the strength it gave her. She placed it alongside the ember of courage and the crystal of wisdom, feeling their combined power fill her with a sense of completeness. The guardian stepped forward, its presence more tangible now, more real. "You have proven yourself worthy, Aurelia. The truth you seek is now within your grasp. But remember, truth is not a destination, but a journey. It is ever-changing, ever-growing, just as you are." Aurelia nodded, understanding the wisdom in the guardian's words. She knew that her journey was far from over, that there were still many challenges ahead. But she also knew that she was ready to face them, armed with the courage, wisdom, and love she had gained through the trials. With a final bow to the guardian, Aurelia turned and walked away from the clearing, her heart light, her mind clear. She did not know where the path ahead would lead her, but she knew that she was ready for whatever lay in store. And as she walked, the forest around her seemed to come alive with light and life, as if acknowledging her victory, her growth. She smiled, knowing that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in her journey, a journey that she would face with courage, wisdom, and an open heart. Chapter 5. The Forest of Reflection. Aurelia walked through the vibrant forest, her steps lightened by the trials she had passed. The trees whispered gently in the wind, their leaves glowing with an otherworldly light, as if the entire forest was alive with magic. The air was thick with the scent of blooming flowers, and the ground beneath her feet felt soft, like a carpet of moss. Yet even in the midst of this beauty, Aurelia could sense something was different. The path ahead was no longer clear. It twisted and turned, splitting into multiple directions, each one leading into a dense thicket. The forest, once welcoming, now seemed filled with mystery and hidden dangers. She paused, feeling the weight of the journey behind her and the uncertainty of the path ahead. The ember of courage, the crystal of wisdom, and the flower of love pulsed softly in her hand, their light providing comfort but no clear direction. As she stood there, unsure of which way to go, a soft voice echoed through the trees, melodic and soothing, yet filled with an eerie sense of familiarity. "Follow the path of reflection, Aurelia. The answers you seek lie within." Aurelia looked around, trying to find the source of the voice, but there was no one there. The forest was silent once more, the only sound the rustling of leaves in the wind. But the voice had spoken true. If she was to continue her journey, she needed to look within herself, to reflect on all she had learned and faced. Taking a deep breath, Aurelia closed her eyes and focused on the light in her hand. The warmth of the ember, the clarity of the crystal, and the tenderness of the flower combined into a single pulse, guiding her inward, into the depths of her soul. When she opened her eyes again, the path before her had changed. It was now a single, narrow trail, leading deeper into the heart of the forest. The trees on either side loomed tall, their branches intertwined, creating a canopy that blocked out the sky. Aurelia stepped forward, her resolve firm. She knew that this part of the journey would be different from the trials. This was not a test of courage, wisdom, or love. It was a test of her understanding, of her ability to see herself clearly, without the illusions and fears that had once clouded her vision. The path led her to a small, tranquil clearing, at the center of which was a crystal-clear pool of water. The surface of the pool was as smooth as glass, reflecting the trees and sky above with perfect clarity. It was beautiful, yet there was something unsettling about it, as if the water held secrets she was not yet ready to face. Aurelia approached the pool cautiously, kneeling beside it to peer into its depths. The water was so clear that she could see straight to the bottom, where smooth stones lay scattered like jewels. But it was not the stones that caught her attention. It was her reflection. The face staring back at her was her own, yet different. It was older, wiser, with eyes that held a depth of understanding she had not yet attained. The reflection smiled at her, a sad, knowing smile that sent a shiver down her spine. "Who are you?" Aurelia whispered, her voice trembling. "Why do you look like me?" The reflection's smile widened, and it spoke with a voice that echoed both in her mind and in the forest around her. "I am you, Aurelia. I am the version of you that you fear, the you that you could become or that you already are." Aurelia's heart pounded in her chest. "What do you mean? How can you be me?" The reflection's gaze softened, its eyes filled with compassion. "You have faced the trials of courage, wisdom, and love, but there is one more truth you must confront. The truth of who you are, not the person you were, or the person you wish to be, but the person you are now, in this moment." Aurelia felt a lump form in her throat. She had always seen herself as a seeker, someone on a journey to discover her true self. But she had never considered that the person she was in the present could be just as important as the person she was striving to become. The reflection reached out, its hand skimming the surface of the water. "Look deeper, Aurelia. What do you see?" Aurelia hesitated, then leaned closer to the pool, focusing on her reflection. At first, all she saw was herself tired, worn from the trials, but also stronger, more determined. But as she continued to stare, the image began to shift. She saw herself at different points in her life, moments of joy and sorrow, of triumph and failure. She saw the young girl who had dreamed of adventure, the teenager who had faced her first real heartbreak, the woman who had set out on this journey to find the truth. But she also saw the shadows, the doubts, the fears, the mistakes she had made along the way. She saw the parts of herself she had tried to forget, the flaws she had buried deep within. And as she looked deeper, she realized that these shadows were just as much a part of her as the light. The reflection nodded, as if reading her thoughts. "You cannot move forward until you accept all of yourself, Aurelia, the good and the bad, the light and the dark. Only by embracing the whole of who you are can you truly understand your purpose." Aurelia felt tears prick her eyes as the weight of the reflection's words sank in. She had always believed that to find the truth, she needed to change, to become someone better, someone more worthy. But now she realized that the truth was not something to be found, it was something to be accepted, "I see it now," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "I see who I am." The reflection smiled again, this time with pride. "Then you are ready to take the next step in your journey. Remember, Aurelia, that the person you are now is enough. You are worthy of the truth, just as you are." With those final words, the reflection began to fade, the surface of the pool rippling as the image dissolved into the water. Aurelia watched as the pool returned to its stillness, her reflection now just her own. She stood, feeling a sense of peace she had never known before. The path before her was still uncertain, but she knew now that she had the strength to walk it, not because she was perfect, but because she was whole. With a final glance at the pool, Aurelia turned and walked away, the forest opening up before her as she moved forward with a new sense of purpose. She was ready for whatever lay ahead, knowing that she had everything she needed within herself. Chapter 6. The Oracle's Revelation. The forest grew darker as Aurelia continued along the path, the trees closing in around her like ancient sentinels. The air was thick with anticipation, the silence broken only by the soft crunch of leaves underfoot. Despite the serenity of the forest, a sense of urgency quickened her pace. She knew she was nearing the end of her journey, but she had yet to discover the final truth she sought. The path led her to the base of a towering cliff, its sheer face rising high into the sky, covered in moss and vines. At the top, barely visible through the mist, was the entrance to a cave, its dark mouth beckoning her forward. Aurelia hesitated for only a moment before she began the climb. The rock was rough beneath her fingers, the climb steep and treacherous, but she moved with determination, her heart guided by the knowledge that this was the final step, the place where all her trials would culminate. When she reached the top, she paused to catch her breath, looking out over the forest below. The view was breathtaking, the entire landscape bathed in the soft light of the setting sun, but Aurelia knew there was no time to admire the scenery. The cave awaited her, and within it the answers she had sought for so long. She stepped into the cave, her footsteps echoing off the stone walls. The air was cool and damp, the darkness thick and oppressive, but as she ventured deeper, the darkness began to recede, replaced by a soft golden light that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. The light guided her to a large, open chamber, at the center of which stood a massive stone pedestal. On the pedestal sat an ornate, glowing orb, its surface swirling with colors and patterns that seemed to shift and change with each passing moment. Aurelia approached the orb cautiously, feeling the power that radiated from it. This was the oracle, the source of the truth she had been seeking, the final revelation that would complete her journey. As she reached out to touch the orb, a voice filled the chamber, ancient, powerful, and filled with a wisdom that transcended time. "You have come far, Aurelia. You have faced your fears, your past, and your heart. Now you stand before the oracle, ready to receive the truth you seek." Aurelia's hand trembled as it hovered above the orb. "What is the truth?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What is my purpose?" The oracle's light flared, filling the chamber with a warm, golden glow. The truth is not a single answer, Aurelia, but a tapestry woven from many threads. Your purpose is not fixed, but ever-changing, shaped by the choices you make and the path you walk. Aurelia's heart raced as the oracle's words sank in. But how will I know if I'm on the right path? How will I know if I've found the truth? The oracle's light pulsed gently, almost as if it were laughing. The truth is not something to be found, but something to be lived. As long as you walk your path with courage, wisdom, and love, you are living your truth. Aurelia's mind raced with questions, but as she looked into the swirling depths of the orb, she felt a calmness settle over her. The truth was not a destination, but a journey, one that she had already begun. The trials had not been about finding the truth, but about preparing her to live it. "You are ready, Aurelia," the oracle said softly. "Go forth and live your truth, knowing that you are enough just as you are." With those words, the orb's light began to fade, the colors and patterns slowing until they were still. Aurelia lowered her hand, feeling a sense of peace and fulfillment she had never known before. She had come to this place seeking answers, but she had found something far more valuable, a deeper understanding of herself, of her journey, and of the power she held within. With a final bow to the oracle, Aurelia turned and left the cave, the light of the setting sun welcoming her back into the world. The path ahead was still uncertain, but she no longer feared it. She knew now that she was capable of facing whatever lay ahead, not because she had found all the answers, but because she had found herself. As she descended the cliff and re-entered the forest, Aurelia felt a renewed sense of purpose. The trials had come to an end, but her journey was far from over. She would continue to walk her path, guided by the courage, wisdom, and love she had gained along the way, living her truth with every step. And as she walked, the forest around her seemed to glow with a new light, as if acknowledging her transformation, her growth. Aurelia smiled, knowing that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in her life, a life she was ready to embrace with an open heart and a clear mind. Thank you so much for joining me on this magical journey through the first 6 chapters of the Trials of Elenara. I hope you've enjoyed Aurelia's adventure as much as I've enjoyed sharing it with you. There's so much more to come in this tale, and I can't wait to dive into the next chapters with you. If you're as excited as I am, be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, so you don't miss out on what's next. Leave a comment below with your thoughts or predictions. What do you think lies ahead for Aurelia? I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and remember, the magic is always within you. See you in the next chapter.